everybody, this is Sherry at djsundry.blogspot.com, and do you love stencils? I like stencils a lot, and I have been kind of expanding my collection, and today's clean and simple card is using this stencil. So come on back and we will make a card. Okay, so we're going to jump into this clean and simple card, and then when we're all done, I am going to show you the next version of the card, something a little bit more elaborate. Now, I have made these clean and simple cards, and I will tell you they went together very quickly. So let's jump in and start with that one. So I am using this Tim Holtz stencil. This clean and simple card is all about the stencils. This is THS 118. Can't wait, love the way this turned out. I have this old stamp set. It is called He Is the Way Holiday. I think this is the first time I've ever used this. It's retired, but I use this big stamp right here. I used shaded lilac distress ink, and I used Rangel Archival black ink. So let's jump in and get started. So I have a blending brush here, and this one doesn't quite fit my card base now, or my card panel. I think that if you wanted to, you could just as easily do this directly on the card base and do a one layer card and it would be fine. I chose not to because I was kind of playing with it, and I really liked having this set on a white card base, and so that worked out really well. Now I will tell you that this doesn't quite cover the whole back of the card, which isn't a problem because you just line up the circles. And for this one, we're going to do that. So let's pull this up. Now what I wanted to do is I want it to be heavier on the outside. I don't want, first of all, any of it to be super heavy. But I do want it to be heavier on the outside and lighter on the inside. I do want polka dots throughout the whole thing, but again, I want it to be the heavier concentration of ink to be on the outside. Now for this particular one, I am not doing anything super fancy as far as making sure that the stencil stays down, because for this one it really doesn't need to. I am lining it back up and you can just barely see it in there. But for this one, I really don't have to have it all staying down because it's more about the look of the stencil than it is really about it being perfect and staying down and in place. I think I want to put a little bit more ink on this side, concentrate that ink so it balances a little bit more, and the stencil is done. How easy is that? So let's step that aside, and we are going to pull out our stamp tool. I have a big mess here. You should see my desk. You probably shouldn't. You would wonder how I'm working. But again, I'm going to pull this, I'm going to reposition it in my stamp tool. I've already been using this stamp, so I already know that I've got some good ink on it. I love the contrast of this black on this shaded lilac. And for this clean and simple card, it is almost done already. Can you believe that? If you're wondering about the card, this panel, it is 4 inches wide by 5 1/4 inches tall. So it's about 1/8 of an inch smaller, or yeah, 1/4 of an inch smaller than a regular A2 size card. Now, whoa, hopefully, good thing that was a good impression because I did not expect that to come up like that. I've noticed with this that when I have a fresh ink, it does that. The more, like when I'm doing 20 of them, it doesn't do that very often because it just keeps right on moving. Now you're probably wondering, do I ever clean my stamps? Yes, I absolutely clean my stamps. I don't spend a lot of time. It's not the end of the world to me if they are stained. I don't mind that at all. If I was doing a lot of alcohol ink lift techniques, then I would be a little bit more careful about making sure that it was clean with stamp cleaner. But I just cleaned it off with a baby wipe when I'm done. But this video isn't about that. So again, super simple, and I am just going to center this on here, and this card is done. Now, I know that that's simple, but I really liked that effect. I mean, you really cannot get much simpler than that. It took us maybe 3-5 minutes to make that card, and it's done. So now let's go into the next one. So when When we come back, we are going to kick it up and add a little bit more detail and make it still clean and simple, but with a twist. So come right back and we will do the next one. Okay, so we have our next panel, and this time I am going with a little bit wider panel. So where the first panel on the first card was only 4 inches wide, I want this to be the exact same size as the full card base would be on an A2 size card. So I've cut it 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. The other thing that I've done differently on this one is I do want to be more precise with my dots for this technique that we're going to be using. So I have taped my panel to the back of my stencil. Now this washi tape is old and it's super sticky. So what I did, just for a tip, is when I took it off, I took it and rubbed it on the sleeve of my jacket to take away some of the stickiness so that hopefully it won't tear up my card panel. Okay, so we're going to start out the card. Now that we've pre-prepped our panel, we're going to start it off the same way. We're going to get some ink and we're going to ink it. Again, we're going to do heavier on the outside, and I'm going to go around the whole outside with a heavier hand this time, all the way around. And then once I have done that, I will pull some into the center with a lighter hand, just slightly going over the center. I still want that color because I really like that color. If you watch me, you know how much I like purple, but I want it to be darker. Now, the other thing that we're going to do a little bit differently, we'll come back in a minute and do. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stamp my image. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky because I don't want to remove it. I don't want to remove my stencil yet. So I'm going to move things kind of out of the way, bring my stamp panel over and get it lined up. Now I am going to just fold that over like so and then put my magnets down for my panel. Does that make sense? So I've still got it lined up just like I did the other, it's just it's still attached to the stencil. Okay, so we are going to ink up our stamp, and I want to get it super inky because I really don't want to have to pull this one up if possible. I really like the contrast of this black with the shaded lilac. We're going to make sure we've got a firm impression. Just like that. Boom. Perfect. Okay, I'm liking the way this is going. Now, remember I said that I wanted it, let's go ahead and put this here for now, that I wanted it to be a little bit different, and I was leaving it on. We're going to do something a little bit different. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a piece of cardstock, just a scrap, and I am going to set it over the top and cover up those dots like so. You see that? Actually, I'm covering up all of the dots. And then I'm going to take my Distress Oxide, and we are going to make a border on just the sides of the card. So we're just going to blend more of that shaded lilac onto the sides to give it still color, but it's going to set that apart from the stripes. Now I am not an expert blender, as you can see, but this is going to work out perfectly. So just look at that. See how that just gives that a little pop of color? So that's the first thing that we're doing differently as far as overall techniques. So I'm going to move to the other side and do the exact same thing, making sure that it's straight as I can get it. And then we're just going to go down the side and back up, get that all blended out so that we will have almost a frame, but not a full frame, just a partial frame. Just like that. Isn't that pretty already? Let's pull that up so you can see it. So there we have that. Now I'm going to close this back because we're not done. Okay, making sure that everything is still lining up there. Now we're going to do the next part. Now I've never done this before, so bear with me. I'm going to kind of come off camera and I am going to smush some shaded lilac down. See how much I smushed there? And we're going to put that on the side. Then I have this Ranger texture paste, and so I am going to pull some of the texture paste. Ooh, that feels nice. It's a new bottle. I've never used this before either, but we're going to pull some of that texture paste and mix that in with the shaded lilac. Ooh, pretty, 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 but we're not done yet. It's like a whipped cream. Almost makes me want to lick my finger. Cool Whip. If you don't like Cool Whip, well, you probably wouldn't want to do that. So now what I have is I have a little bit of rock candy glitter here, and we are going to mix that into it. Probably mixed a little bit more than what I needed, but that's okay. I bought that rock candy glitter a long time ago because I wanted to color glitter with alcohol inks, and I've never done it yet. But hopefully it will still show. If not, we'll sprinkle some over the top too. I'm just mixing that in. So now we're going to pull that over, making sure that everything's lined back up. Looks like it is. And I am just going to smooth some of that over into there. Now I'm just going to do the outer edges. I'm not going to go into the center. And I really don't care if I hit all of it, because I want that variegation of texture. Some of it to have texture, some of it not to have texture. It's really gritty with the rock candy in there. But I want some of it to have the color and the texture and some of it not to. So again, I'm not trying to get all of it in there. Just kind of making almost a halo, I guess you would say, around the outer edges of that. I'm going to just shift this a little bit. Pull that over. Definitely don't want that in my image. There we go. Make sure it's smooth. Okay. So let's peel it up and see how it looks. Wow. So pretty. So pretty. So I'm going to go clean this up, and when we come back we'll finish the card. So I've cleaned up everything, and what I've noticed is it's of course still wet, so we can't really finish the card yet, and I did bump this up here and made a little bit of a mess, but it'll be okay. It does have a little bit of a sheen in there in the texture paste, but it's not super glittery. It is definitely textured, and it definitely looks different than just the stencil. And I like it. I'm not sure which I like better. I know if I'm mass producing, this is the one I'm going for, because I did this in, I don't know, maybe an hour. I cranked out about 25 of these. This one is obviously going to take a little bit more time. Once it dries, I will put it on a card base, and it will be good to go, and it'll be a card. But it definitely is very interesting, and I really like the contrast of that dark black against that shaded lilac. I like the texture that the texture paste gives it, and that little hint of, and when you turn it just right, you can kind of see that shine that's in there. I used the glossy Ranger texture paste when I was doing this. If you wanted a more matte look, you could use the matte one, but there would be two different cards. Now all I have to do is to do exactly what I did with this, just tape it on the back and put it onto my card base, and I'll have my second card. I'm not going to show that on camera because I really need this to dry. I think the dry time on this is probably relatively short because I put a pretty thin coat on, but I want to make sure that it's dry. So there we have our two cards. We've got super clean and simple. We've got clean and simple, but a little bit more oomph to it, a few more steps, a little bit more work put into it, but both stunning. So thanks so much for stopping by today. Remember to take some time to enjoy the little things, and if you want to check out other videos from the series, click on the link up in the corner. and it will take you back to the playlist that can take you through all of the videos in this series. So have a great day. Bye.